Well, dear ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to be here. Thank you very much to President Dr. Kim Sok-chol for the invitation. We have talked about this for a long time, and I'm really glad to be here to be able to present some of the Swedish points of view regarding these issues. And so I'm truly honored to share my thoughts and the Swedish government thoughts on the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and also on the way, some perspectives on the way forward. So thanks again to Professor President Kim and for KINAC for this wonderful opportunity. I will start with a brief global outlook. The past year has, of course, been a great challenge for all of us. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a profound impact on our societies, and well over 3 million people have lost their lives, which is terrible. But in the shadow of the COVID-19 pandemic, the global security environment continues to deteriorate, as we all know. Polarization deepens, and the lack of trust between countries, not least between the nuclear weapon states in the P5, is evident. We see that nuclear capabilities are being developed and in some cases expanded at the same time as the broader arms control architecture struggles to cope. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has voiced his concerns and said that we need a new vision for arms control in the complex international security environment of today. So our common goal of a world free of nuclear weapons seems further away than in a long time, and that, I think, is deeply troubling. We must never lose sight of that goal, or the fact that even one single nuclear explosion would have humanitarian consequences of completely catastrophic proportions. However, through cooperation and multilateral efforts, 2021 has the potential to see us overcome many threats. The extension, for instance, of the New START in February treaty was a welcome step in this regard, I believe. And the same resolve and spirit of collaboration needed to fight the pandemic, I think, now is required to address the threats that may cause this immeasurable human suffering that a nuclear explosion would entail. The NPT, as we all know, went into force in 1970, and it continues to constitute the cornerstone for nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation policy. And as you all know, it's based on 3 pillars: disarmament, non-proliferation, and peaceful uses of nuclear energy. And they, all 3, are mutually important and reinforcing. Important to remember. So looking back, the NPT, and I'm sure you've talked a lot about that yesterday and will today, has been a fantastic success, and it has contributed to the relatively low number of states that possess nuclear weapons today. It has also curbed proliferation, not entirely as we know, but it has curbed proliferation of nuclear weapons technology, and at the same time opened up for nuclear technology for peaceful uses, such as in agriculture and health. And with its 191 state parties, it's probably one of the treaties that have the most number of states supporting it. And most importantly, of course, as we all know, it includes the P5 of the United Nations: China, France, Russia, the UK, and the US. So looking ahead, we need, I believe, to make sure that the treaty stands robust for the challenges that we have in front and ahead of us. It's very worrying that the disarmament and non-proliferation diplomacy, since decades actually, face hurdles and standstills. And the upcoming review conference provide, I believe, a crucial opportunity for state parties to strengthen all three pillars of the NPT. We need to reaffirm the previous commitments to achieve real and much needed progress in their implementation, not least in regard of Article 6 concerning disarmament. So let me underline that the next NPT review conference, no matter when and in which format it will take place, provides a great opportunity, not to be missed, for an outcome that strengthens the treaty and, by implication, global security. We will all benefit from this, and it will certainly provide an important political message that the international disarmament and non-proliferation regime remains fundamentally robust. So, ladies and gentlemen, global security is shared. All parties have a role to play in the lead-up to that conference. There are many initiatives and groupings that suggest way forward. And this, I think, is good, as we can complement and reinforce each other. Of course, the nuclear weapon states have a special responsibility, and we, Government of Sweden, and I think everybody here, welcome the joint preparations of, in the so-called P5 process, which hopefully can give some results. Because positive steps are urgently needed if we are going to set the stage for a successful outcome of the review conference. And in this regard, I would like to reiterate what I mentioned before, the positive development that the United States and Russia have recently decided to extend the New START Treaty for another 5 years. We were a little bit concerned. It was really very, very late, but still it was done, which was great. And I think its importance cannot be overestimated, as it is really the only instrument limiting the size of the world's two by far biggest nuclear arsenals. And I also think that the extension will provide for continued and possibly extended dialogue on how to move forward in arms control. We have a meeting upcoming between President Putin and Biden in Geneva in a couple of weeks. We heard only yesterday, so I hope it will be on the agenda. Because we strongly encourage further talks and negotiations, including on China, or with China, on broader arms control agreements. I think the agenda should be ambitious, seeking further reductions on strategic arsenals, and for the first time, hopefully regulating arsenals on tactical nuclear weapons as well. We need more of constructive, multilateral and bilateral cooperation in arms control, in disarmament and non-proliferation to counter these negative developments that I mentioned, not less. So this brings me to the importance that Sweden puts in both disarmament diplomacy and the 10th review conference of the NPT, and it's the reason why the so-called Stockholm Initiative for Nuclear Disarmament was launched and why it focuses on the disarmament pillar of the treaty. The Republic of Korea, Sweden, and another 14 countries who are non-nuclear weapon states from different parts of the world and with different security perspectives and environments are members of this Stockholm Initiative. And in addition to that, several other NPT states have also aligned the agenda with the agenda of the initiative. So a crucial part is that many commitments within that pillar that were made at earlier review conferences have not been implemented, as we all know. So naturally, confidence in the treaty lies very much in the fact that it is being implemented. From a Swedish perspective, it will be important that state parties now both reaffirm the continued validities of previous commitments made within the NPT framework and also advance its implementation. We need not only to review what has been done so far, but also to be forward-looking and examine what lies ahead and how progress can be made regardless of the prevailing security environment. Or maybe just because of it, we cannot really leave the disarmament pillar behind. It's important to remember that amidst all this talk about non-proliferation. So the purpose of the Stockholm Initiative is to engage and to build political support for a very pragmatic and result-oriented disarmament agenda that focuses on implementation and that states can gather around what one would call a common ground agenda. So within the initiative, we have so far had 3 meetings at ministerial level, where the Republic of Korea has also participated, in Stockholm in 2019, in Berlin in 2020, and in Amman this year. And at the meeting in Berlin last year, the ministers adopted a ministerial agenda or declaration which included 22 so-called stepping stones, which are essentially concrete proposals and measures for nuclear disarmament. And the initiative also includes a special approach, which is an action-oriented method of taking steps that would move us in the right direction, I believe. It, I hope, can help breaking down different items into more digestible measures, provide for incremental implementation of them, and thus allow for progress even now, not sometime in the distant future. So in addition, these steps can in parallel set in motion, hopefully, confidence-building processes which can lead to further steps down the line. And these 22 steps, stepping stones, are not an exhaustive list, nor are they to be implemented as a full wish list, but they are realistic and quite honest suggestions for measures that we believe can be taken now and form a basis for serious dialogue among the state parties on what can be accepted, what can be amended, and how it can be materialized, etc. They also cover some overarching perspectives to be brought into the equation, and that can help us to move forward over time, such as securing a gender perspective, the importance of interacting with the affected communities, and engage with the young generation in dialogue and exchange on disarmament. I saw that that is on the agenda for later today for this conference. And I really commend the Republic of Korea for your important work in disarmament education and the young generation. So thank you for that. The full range of the proposed stepping stones amount to an ambitious package. Ambitious, but yet realistic as we see it. And the disarmament debate remains, as we all know, highly polarized. And that each side kind of seems to take comfort in a somewhat black and white approach, I don't think is very helpful. I think it's crucial that we move away from some oversimplistic argument, and that is what the Stockholm Initiative is about. The Stepping Stones Annex with the 22 proposals have been submitted as an annex to the review conference. I hope it will be seriously considered. And we now reach out to other states with an invitation to align with our proposals. And I want to emphasize that we need to uphold a debate and exchange ahead of the conference, that it's not silent. And I think this conference is an excellent opportunity for that. Because here I think the civil society, I think academia, researchers, think tanks play an important role, as we see here and now today. So thank you to Keynote for that. Furthermore, in order to promote and facilitate promoting the signature and the implementation of the CTBT remain also a huge priority. And we as Sweden welcome all opportunities to support its entry into force. We also call on all states to maintain moratoria on nuclear weapons test, explosion, or any other nuclear explosion, and to refrain from any action that would be in contravention to the object and purpose of that CTBT treaty, even though it is not fully ratified yet. Now, before I end, I cannot stand here in Seoul, in the Korean peninsula, without saying a couple of words about regional proliferation. and especially obviously North Korea, but also Iran are on everybody's mind. I think it is still too early to say exactly and to know in which direction we are heading. A lot of things can happen. This is a fluid substance, and I need to follow I think we need to follow this closely in the coming month. As regards North Korea's nuclear and missile program, I just want to say that they, of course, remain a major threat to the global non-proliferation regime. Sweden, as the rest of the international community, urges North Korea to fulfill its international commitments and to undertake the complete, verifiable, and irreversible disarmament of its nuclear weapons and missile programs in line with the UN security resolutions. And I still sincerely believe that there will be opportunities for an incremental dialogue and approach, as we see is wished for from several quarters. So when it comes to Iran, Sweden and the EU remains a steadfast supporter of the JCPOA. The current situation is a bit worrying, but we hope that we will see progress in the ongoing negotiations out of Vienna. So I would like to end by once again emphasizing that the upcoming NPT review conference provides a great opportunity not to be missed for an outcome that strengthens the treaty and by implication global security. It will probably be quite a daunting task, but we need to remember that we will all benefit from an outcome that builds for the future and can provide an important political message for the years to come in arms control, in disarmament and proliferation. And I think the time for action is upon all of us. And what we need now is the political leadership and the constructive engagement, not least from the nuclear weapon states. So thank you so very much for listening to this very long speech, but thank you for the opportunity. Kamsahamnida.